Thanks for watching Morning Live. The city of Cape Town has defended the land evictions that took place in Khayelitsha this week. Now, a video of the incident in which a man is dragged naked from his shack has gone viral on social media and has drawn anger from several quarters. Cape Town Mayor Dan Plato has apologized for the way Bulelani Xolani was dragged out of his shack by police officers, and this in full view of his neighbors. Plato says that while evictions are not permitted under the lockdown, the courts and Human Settlements Minister Lindiwe Zulu called for the incident inhumane, but says that municipalities across the country have a duty to prevent illegal land invasions. So we're joined now by the Mayor of the City of Cape Town, Mr. Dan Plato. Thanks so much for your time and welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
Mr. Plato, firstly, most people who have seen that video are absolutely outraged by what they've seen on it, and there seems to be consensus on the situation having been handled in a very subhumane way. So you also agreed and said that it was shameful, but what then is being investigated regarding this particular incident?
Well, definitely, that was my immediate statement I released early yesterday. I think the officers should have shown some restraint, particularly when the person was naked, and they should have tried to cover him at least, and in that manner get him out of the structure. It did not happen. The officers are suspended, and at the end of the day, we have launched an immediate internal investigation into the whole matter. But in saying that we don't condone that kind of behavior, there were several attempts to invade that site because we want to build houses on that site. And if people continuously invade, we will never be able to build any houses for the people in need of a house. And that person was caught on video. You must realize, when we do raids of that nature, we have our camera people standing by to take the necessary pictures because it always ends up in court. And that person had his pants on, he was closed. And when the officers reached that particular structure, all of a sudden, within moments, he was naked. So he was not initially naked. So it says to me that is why it warrants a full-scale investigation to determine all the facts. And after that is done, I think hereby within the next couple of days, my office will release a full report with regard to our findings. But yes, I agree with entities such as the Human Rights Commission and others. They're talking about taking the matter further. I respect that. I had a lengthy discussion with Chris Nissen of the Human Rights Commission down here in the Western Cape, and I said to him, I've got no problem with the set actions they want to take.
The set actions that who wants to take? The Human Rights Commission?
Well, definitely that was the indication Reverend Nissen had given me, that they launched their own investigation in the matter. I've got no problem with that. And obviously what other further steps, they're talking about the Equality Court and the High Court and so on. It is their right to do that. And I said to him that we will definitely work closely with him to get down to the bottom of this incident.
I see the Minister of Human Settlements is also taking you to court. At least that's what the statement that was released yesterday indicates. Minister Sisulu indicating she's appalled by the victimization and abuse of residents of Empolweni in Khayelitsha and Cape Town by the Metro Police led by city councillors. So are you not conducting an investigation into the conduct of councillors who were part of this particular move?
That is part of the allegations. That is why I'm saying that is part of the whole package of the investigation. That is what our video systems need to pick up. If it is that the said person that was found to be naked, that it was a stage incident, that he was roaming from site to site. He was picked up walking around as the officers move around to break down the structures and that sort of thing, and all of a sudden, that is part of the whole set of investigators. If councillors was present, had given instructions, that is what I've heard. But look, I don't want to make statements on the basis of allegations and this one heard that and so forth. Our video cameras will have to provide us with the necessary exact information, and that's why I'm saying I think while we condemn that incident in the strongest terms possible, I want to ask the public of Cape Town and the Western Cape and South Africa, allow us, the city of Cape Town, the opportunity to do its investigation and to release the findings of the investigation to the public.
Mr. Plato, is the city of Cape Town engaging in evictions during the lockdown?
Look, we must understand one thing. People misusing the lockdown regulations and measures. We find a dramatic spike in invasions of land, and people knows that. And there's organizations obviously behind them, spurring them on to invade land and to put up structures all over the show. In Cape Town, you find tents and stuff all over. My office even receive now calls from NGOs and the public. Aren't you going to provide that tent people with a toilet and with water points and that sort of thing? Cape Town will become, within a nick of time, a tent town and that sort of thing. And that is why I wrote to President Ramaphosa to explain all of these issues to the President in a letter I forwarded to the President on Monday. And I'm awaiting for the President's office to get back to the city to say what will the next step be, because invasions is a dramatic problem. And after the lockdown, even if it is after a year or so, you will see hundreds and hundreds of court cases of people to get people off land. They invade private land, they invade public land. It's becoming an untenable kind of a situation, and the public do not understand local authorities' inability to take action. So we are not breaking down old structures that is there for months, and that's all. These are brand new structures that were put up yesterday, and today we go on to the land and we break down. That is how we do our thing, and this is what is happening across the country. The breaking down of structures, you see it in Gauteng, in other provinces as well. The point is, must local authorities just stood by and to see that the mayhem is happening around them and there is no recourse for the landowners.
Is the city of Cape Town engaging in illegal evictions, Mr. Plato?
No, definitely not. I do not believe this is an illegal eviction. As I've said, it is brand new structures. We went back to Impolweni week after week to break down brand new structures. It's definitely not new evictions.
So, Mr. Plato, with regard to people's basic rights, and these are basic human rights, the right to adequate housing, and that's enshrined in the Constitution, not just in South Africa's Constitution, but in human rights law the world over. So, in terms of upholding dignity of people, is the city in contravention of that?
I don't believe so. You must remember one thing. Housing for all over the years, I know it, is always a contentious kind of an issue. There's not enough budget for building enough houses. Never enough budget. All provinces grappling with the same issue. Yes, I agree. Each and every person wants a house, but what do you do if there's not enough funds to provide each and every person in need of a house, to provide them with housing? In Cape Town and the Western Cape, we're talking about over 500,000 people on the integrated housing waiting list, and not even 20,000 gets built per annum. That is the problem. And also, there's never enough land available to provide housing. And I think that is why, in my letter to President Ramaphosa's office and addressed to the President himself, I have said that government as a whole needs to get together. And maybe this incident prompts us for such actions, drastic actions, to getting together and to say, how best are we going to tackle the dramatic housing need and shortage of houses across the country?
Did you have an eviction order for this particular eviction, Mr. Plato?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Look, the issue is, for each and every structure going up this morning, the question is, must you go for an eviction order and that sort of thing? You
What
will
does
get
the
that
law
order
say, Mr. Plato?
after 2-3 weeks. And
What
not
does the law say?
Or immediately. No.
What does the law say?
No, you have said what the law has said, Sakina. I think we all understand what the law are saying. We know the law, and at the end of the day, we are talking here about, and I want to repeat myself, I am not talking here about old structures that went up. I'm talking here about brand new structures, and as the brand new structure goes up, we take it down. The question is, if someone put up structures somewhere in Adelistraat in Cape Town now this morning, must we leave it? Must we first say we go into a court to get the court order?
So
we make sure within hours to go in and to break that structure down.
If you know what the law says, Mr. Plato, why then are you in contravention of the law?
I don't think we are in contravention of the law.
You are in contravention of the law, Mr. Plato. Firstly, you did not have an eviction order, did you? Did the city have an eviction order?
Sakina, it is, you read the law in that manner as how you understand it, and I understand it differently.
It's not my understanding, Mr. Plato. Let me read to you what a previous Concord ruling stated. The residents of Joe Slovo community versus Tubelisha home. And it clearly states there, the Constitutional Court ruled that the state was obliged to provide temporary shelter for people who have been evicted or face imminent eviction and were unable. Let me just read it to you. Let me just finish reading it to you, Mr. Plato. So the state is obliged to provide that permanent shelter if they were unable to find shelter. The absolute priority must be the principle of upholding human dignity. That was a ruling by the Constitutional Court, and it talks about according to the policy, emergency housing may be temporary, on-site assistance, relocation to a permanent location, etc., etc. So you know that. But you went ahead and you still evicted people, Mr. Plato.
Let me say to you, you're not a legal person yourself, Sakina.
No, but I'm reading to you what the Concord ruling said.
Let me say to you, I don't want to argue with you. There's circumstances, there's issues pertaining to that incident. If it was a staged incident by the said people, if it was what they planned to do, and that's what, let's wait for the investigation to be completed. If it is, he staged he's taking down of his clothes, let's wait for the investigation to be completed. But let me say, there is a court ruling, a high court ruling on that land. That is why I'm saying we must not be too quick to rush to conclusions. The High Court of Cape Town ruled on that site, and by saying the city needs to see that the city prevent brand new structures from being put up on that piece of land. That is a key element, and that is why I'm saying, despite with what we have said, there's already the court has said we need to leave 49 structures on that site. That is old structures. But any brand new structure, the city of Cape Town is obliged to break down the brand new structures, and that is exactly what we have done.
Let me read another regulation to you, Mr. Plato. Unless a court specifically orders that it is just and equitable for an eviction to be carried out then and there, law enforcement cannot physically remove you from your home. I'm sure the city of Cape Town is aware of that.
Look, that's why I'm saying that's a different element of the situation. And that is what we want to investigate. Everything you have said, Sakina, unfortunately. But let me remind you, and that sort of thing, with land belong to government, if we allow people willy-nilly to move onto land whenever they want to, we will never see any brick and mortar house built on the land. I have said it to many agencies yesterday. If we need to say to people, take the land, I can say to you, well over 500 people of Greater Khayelitsha will never be able to move into their brick and mortar houses within the next year or two's time. It will be over. It will be gone for them as a result of illegal invasions.
You know, Mr. Plato, it's one thing for citizens to defy the law and rules of the land. It's quite another. It's quite another for the city of Cape Town.
You put in words in my mouth. We are not defying any law. You need to be careful what you are saying.
I said...
We are not defying any law.
You did not listen to me, Mr. Plato. I said it's one thing for citizens to defy rules and laws. It's quite another thing if the city finds itself at variance, at odds with what the regulations are. There's clear regulations under the Disaster Management Act that we are currently under in the lockdown that there should be no evictions.
What you are saying,
you need a court order.
We can allow Mayan to continue all over the show and there's no recourse.
No, what I'm simply saying, Mr. Plato,
that's what you are saying.
What I'm simply saying is that as the city, it is shameful for you to be found wanting and on the wrong side of the law. You cannot willfully and willy-nilly, to quote a phrase from you, go and break the law. You know you needed an eviction order. You didn't have one. You know that you have to uphold people's dignity. You didn't do it in this instance.
That's why I'm saying you need to be careful. For certain hours, for people, for a brand new structure, you don't need an eviction order if it is found to be happening now, in the spur of the moment.
How new were those structures? How new were those structures, Mr. Plato? When did those structures go up?
Look, you are not a magistrate or a judge. Let us wait for the real investigation to be completed. The Human Rights Commission will do their investigation. The city is doing its investigation. We will release the necessary reports to the public. Then we can become a judge again.
Mr. Plato, I don't presume to be a magistrate or a judge, far from it. I'm simply asking you, in that instance, when were those structures put up? How old were they?
Sakina, my understanding is that it is brand new structures.
What is brand new? How long have they been there?
No. Look, that is now you're going into the real specifics with regard to
but if you,
interrogation.
By your own argument, Mr. Plato.
Is brand new. What I'm saying, it is brand new.
What is brand new? A day old, 2 weeks old, 5 weeks old? What is brand new?
Definitely not 5 weeks old and 2 weeks old.
How old is it?
Sakina, look.
No, but Mr. Plato, you can't play like that. Because if you are saying it's not 2 weeks old, how old is it?
That is unfortunately what you are doing. You're playing with the incident. Let me say,
no, Mr. Plato, I'm trying to get down to the facts.
For the investigation to be completed into the whole matter.
How long have those structures been there?
Sakina, thank you.
How long were those structures there, Mr. Plato?
Sakina, thank you very much.
So you're not going to answer the question?
Thank you very much.
Is there any final word, any parting shot you'd like to give us, Mr. Plato?
The issue is, Sakina, if we allow people to invade each and every piece of land, you will only see shacks around Cape Town, and you will never see any brick and mortar houses. And with that, I want to leave the discussion.
Thank you so much for your time. The Mayor of City of Cape Town, Mr. Dan Plato, talking to us about evictions in Khayelitsha and the backlash that the city has received after a video of Bulelani Xolani being dragged out of his shack naked went viral. We've totally obliterated news time, but Leanne standing by to give us some other news.